So the next technique that we're going to be looking at is vibrato, which is one of the most important techniques because it really does help. Like even if you're just sustaining on a single note, it helps to give the note a lot more expression and make it sound like your guitar is singing. So yeah, what I just showed you at the beginning, that's vibrato. So the way that you do vibrato on the low E string, so I usually do it with either my first, second or third finger, and you can do it with your fourth finger as well, is we're going to be doing it on our first finger to start off with. So with your first finger on the string, and then you literally just do that motion with your finger to get vibrato on the low E string. Still got that part of my hand on the bottom of the neck of the guitar to kind of use as kind of a rotation point, a pivot point, and just that motion there with your finger, and the same with all the other ones, second, third, fourth. So and what I usually like to do when I'm doing vibrato on the low E string is I'll sometimes put two fingers onto one fret to aid it a bit, rather than just like with my second finger, rather than just having my second finger doing the vibrato. I'll have my first finger on that fret as well to aid it, and it makes it a lot easier. Same with my third finger. When I'm doing vibrato with my third finger, I've got my second finger on the same fret to assist it. And it's just a continuous sort of repeated downward motion when doing it on the low E. Same again with the A string. Same again with the D string. When I get to the D string, I go back to, same with string bending technique, my vibrato comes from the rotation of the wrist. Got that part there locked onto the bottom of the neck of the guitar, and just a continuous downward rotating motion. Same again with the G string. And on the B string, I still keep it a downward motion. Some guitarists, when they get to the B string, will do an upwards rotating motion when doing vibrato, but I just stick with the downward motion. And then when you get to the high E, obviously you can't do a downward motion. So with the high E, then you do those small upwards rotating motions to do vibrato on that string. Yeah, even I struggle with it a bit. And when doing vibrato, you always want to make sure that with those little micro bends that you're returning to the bass note. So going back to the low E string, that I'm always returning to that bass note right there, which is a G. It's really important. You always want to make sure that you're returning to that bass note. And now, in terms of incorporating vibrato into string bends, this is a technique that when I first started learning it, I really struggled with, and it probably took me months to get this technique down. The easiest string to do it on, I'd say, is the G string. So we're going to go the 7th fret on the G. So before starting this technique, I recommend you get the hang of bending into pitch. So if you're doing half step bend, a whole step, or a 1.5 step bend, that I recommend kind of getting that down so that you can consistently bend to the note that you want to before trying to incorporate vibrato. Because if you're doing a bend to an incorrect note and then trying to add vibrato, then it's not going to work. So we'll start off with just a half step bend. So we're going to bend up a half step. Then when we get to that note, then we're just going to continuously, ever so slightly, loosen the tension on the bend and then bring it back to that note. So constantly releasing the tension slightly and then bringing it back up and always returning to that note. Once again, it all comes from the wrist. Your fingers want to be firmly locked in place with each other. And don't be afraid to, if you're bending on the third finger, for example, you can use your other fingers to kind of assist with the bend, give it a bit more strength, because it's a lot more difficult if you're doing it with just one finger. So don't be afraid to use your other fingers as well to assist with the bend. Just a rotation of the wrist. Just constantly loosening the tension and then bringing it back again. Now whole step bend. I also like to use the kind of weight of the neck of the guitar. So you see when I do my bend, I'm moving the neck around slightly. I also use the kind of weight of the guitar itself to assist with vibrato when doing bend. So I'm sort of like very lightly chucking it up and down to kind of assist with the vibrato. And now 1.5 step bend, which is the most difficult one. Now you want to be careful with 1.5 step bends. I'll admit I don't do them too often, because when you're going into that sort of territory, then you risk breaking a string, which I've done many times before. So just be careful when doing 1.5 step bends.